So we'll code our samples in Python using a Jupyter Notebook. And while this is not a Jupyter Notebook course, I'm going to give you some of the fundamentals of a Jupyter Notebook. Basically, it's an open source app, and it allows you to write and execute code interactively. So you go cell by cell, and you can run a cell. The system itself works in a browser tab, and the web page is being generated by your own machine. So what you do is you kick off a process, a small server in a command line window that becomes your web server, and then you run from that command line. So Jupyter Notebooks support multiple languages. As I said, I'll be working in Python, specifically Python 3. And a real advantage of a notebook is that you can quickly test code, but it also provides rich documentation. So you can embed equations, visualizations, you can embed videos, narrative text. You can sprinkle all of that into your code to document it. But understand that there's orders of magnitude more that you can do with Jupyter Notebooks than I'm going to go into. So I'm going to be focused really on graphing the pitch data, and scrubbing this, wrangling the MLB StatCast PitchFX data. But understand that there's just a lot of rich documentation that you can include in a Jupyter Notebook. So notebooks are composed of cells. And cells are small blocks of code, and you should note that unlike a normal program, you can run these cells individually. You can even run them out of order. And we'll get into the details. I'll show you some of the nuances of a Jupyter Notebook, but you can also rerun cells. So keep in mind that you can run a block of code, and if you rerun it, it's going to replace any variables that get set. They'll be replaced, and those values will now be in state. That'll be the new state of your kernel. And if you run a different cell, that it's going to depend on, and it's going to use those values. So in this class, we're going to create a single notebook. And you'll see as we go along, but I'll divide it into multiple cells. And sometimes I'll just copy code down, and I'll expand the copy so that you've still got the simple case. So you've still got the sort of the raw code. Maybe that illustrates the loop, how we loop through this XML data. And I'll keep that in a cell by itself. So if you want to go a different direction with it, you can easily just take that code and go from there. But either way, you can grab the final file from our GitHub repo, and you can run those cells yourselves. So you don't have to type it all in. But again, for the more daring, I really encourage you to fire up an empty notebook, pause the video as often as you need, and hammer this code in as we go. There's just something about typing the code that makes it sink in a little deeper. So let's go into the details of a Jupyter Notebook.